And then the brain, it's the cranial fluid on the side, and what you get is you've got a membrane all around the inside of the cranium, and then that comes down in a tube that goes down around the whole spinal cord and cranial fluid, and that comes right down into the sacrum, and it comes into a cord, and it comes down and it attaches, or it comes out the back and attaches to the tailbone. And the nerves come out through that, but the nerves, it's more solid. The fluid doesn't flow as well as just in the cranium and in the spine where there's lots of fluid. So you've got the cranial C there. And as this happens, and you'll feel this, as it's hard to do just opening the cranium with all of the cranial fluid open this way and closing and just keeping it there. There's a different feeling of the spine shortening and lengthening. I'm sure this is just getting too much information for a lot of people, but just let it go through. You don't have to remember it. I'm just prepping you for the meditation. As this opens, it pulls the dural tube up, and because it's attached to the tailbone, it pulls the sacrum up. So as this is expanding, it's shortening the spine in the same way as the muscles are shortening the spine in this very physical way from the neck, from the cranium. That's why I put all of those pictures. The pictures I put in the newsletters, they're for you. They are for everybody else, but it is so you've got visualizations for the meditations. So and we'll look at those in a minute, so people have got a picture of that. So that gives a different, the lung circuit is very much the expression of the sideways motion, and you can't have that full expression without the shortening and lengthening. So it expands to the side, the body shortens, contracts medially, the body lengthens. Let's look at those pictures. I'm going to put this on screen share. Okay, good. It's come out. Can you see that? Wave your hand if you can see those pictures. All right. So in the cranium, you can think of the brain as this solid thing. And as I was taught in cranial sacral therapy, the brain is one thing, the cranial fluid is another, and the cranial fluid comes around it and is in the ventricles. When I started doing holographic breathing, I found out that that is wrong, because I experienced it differently. There's a ventricle, it's full of cranial fluid, but also the whole of the brain is cells which are like seaweed, floating in cranial fluid. And because this is called interstitial fluid and that's called cranial fluid, I got the name the cranial sea, which is because this fluid is all the same. It's the same thing. It's not like it's made up differently. They're 99% water, 1% glucose, salt and oxygen. So it's the same fluid, but it gives you a much more fluid picture. What I want people to get is a picture of the brain. It's 90% fluid. It's 90% this stuff and this stuff and this stuff. It's 90% water. So it works as a fluid body rather than thinking of the brain as solid. There's the central brain complex that we're working with, that is to do with transcendence, or when it gets to the top of it, it's like the pelvis, the legs, the chest, the neck, the head, and when the energies get here, it's like this light bulb going off and the connection to the third eye. There we have it in the brain, but I've made these watercolors so you get a fluid concept of that. You've got the ventricles that are only fluid, and everything else is like seaweed with cranial sea in it. And there's got the central brain complex in it. There it is from the front. Again, this is all fluid around it. These are all fluid. There you have the ventricles that comes down the spine. So you've got, I didn't have the wherewithal to paint the cranium, but you've got this whole body of fluid here. And as this is from the front, as that expands sideways, it needs a bit more fluid to come into it to allow it properly to expand sideways. It needs a bit more fluid, so it sucks it up. This is the dural tube, and this is tied to the bottom of the pelvic, to the bottom of the sacrum here. So as this moves out sideways, it pulls this up, so the spine shortens and that widens. The spine lengthens and that narrows. And you don't have to think of it as opening sideways and that pulls it up. You can have it the other way. It's lengthening through the spine and that's causing it to narrow. So they're both working together, and this is from the front and that's from the side. They look like little people to me, and normally the ventricles are just this bit here, but I add, for me, again, I make up my own. I don't make up my own science. I just have to show it in a different way where it makes sense. This needs to be, this where the cranial fluid central column goes down the middle. I include that because that's like the body. It's like Mr. and Mrs. somebody here talking to each other. And this one is definitely Mr. and Mrs. E.T. That's just that central cranial fluid tube going down the center of the spine there, and the ventricles there. But expands sideways, draws up, narrows, lengthens. So as this is expanding, needs a bit more fluid, and this draws up. There is that again. Okay. I'll come to that again, but this circuit is also where it connects under the, I've shown you where the fire energies and yellow energies are connecting under the cranium. The lung energy circuit is connecting where the vagus nerve is coming up through the cranial base. So I'll show you that in a minute. You know, we can work up through it, through the neck, and where it connects under the cranial base, where the lung circuit connects, how it connects to the central brain complex is very much through the vagus nerve. So there we have the vagus nerve. There we have the nerves through the face, again into the very important. The central brain complex is part of this circuit. You've got, that's just one nerve, that's just a trigeminal nerve. You know, you've got all the other ones as well, all going into the central brain complex there. There it is inside. This is that chamber that I was talking about. You've got the throat coming up here and the pharynx here. You've got the breath through the nose coming down. You've got the fire energies and the fire phoenix there. And then you've got the yellow energies more coming up, the trachea, the esophagus. See, the fire energies in the bones. The yellow energies are the esophagus coming up to about here, and the trachea coming up to about here. The pharynx here, I'm not 100% sure, but I think the pharynx is the lung circuit. That's the quality I get. And you've got the pharynx ending kind of this gut tube here and connecting right at the very top. And at the very bottom of that tube, you've got the rectum. So both parts of the same circuit, kind of bottom and top, giving this shortening and lengthening, shortening on the in-breath, lengthening, and they pull, this pulls down here because it's connecting to the diaphragm. The diaphragm drops that, pulls that down, and it pulls on the front part of the fire phoenix here, and it pulls that down and forwards. The muscles at the back, more from the deep earth energies, are pulling at the back, and that creates the whole cranial rhythm with holographic breathing. I know cranial sacral therapists might think differently, but they're not doing holographic breathing. In holographic breathing, where we're working with the breath and physical motion is creating this movement of the cranium, face and whole body. And it's very similar to what they palpate. The mastoid process is here. This is the blue energy circuit, which is right at the sides there. You come in a bit. This is the lung circuit here and here. And this is where the vagus nerve is coming through. So you get the lung circuit is that part. See this here, this is the fire energies. It's coming from the back of the vertebrae here, fire energies. Then it becomes the fire energies here and continues under there. So you've got the fire energies here. Then the yellow energies, you've got the pterygoid plate. So you're looking up into this inner chamber. The back of it is the fire energies. The front of it is the yellow energies. The sides of it here are the lung circuit. And then you come out further to the mastoid processes there. And then that, and the mastoid processes in the ears, that is the blue circuit. I find it extraordinary how this is actually connecting well with how because I didn't know this before we did this. I kind of thought about it, but it's just become more obvious as we've been doing the face circuit, that how the energies are actually coming up into the cranial base. So we will be activating this, the styloid process, these different foramini here, and in particular, I'm not sure what that foramen, I think that might be the, I don't know which nerve is coming through there, which artery is coming. You've got the jugular vein coming through here. That may be another vein, but I think it's also a nerve. But anyway, it's the styloid process and this part coming in from both sides. And the lung circuit it's this sideways motion. And then this, which is the pharynx, and that's where it's meeting in the bottom, but also this is where the breath is coming through. So as it rises, it coming down, it's connecting right around the yellow energies of the pterygoid plates there. I get the impression that all of this connecting up to here is the lung circuit, but I'm not 100% sure on that yet. All right, so I'm glad that was there, so I could show you that. Stop sharing. I'll show you that on the skull. And I'll be mentioning this all. There you've got the skull. Here you've got where the spine is sitting in it. You've got the ear holes here. And then behind the ear holes, you've got the mastoid process. And then inside, you've got the styloid process here and here. Vagus nerve here. So we'll be working into that whole area where the vagus nerve is coming up through the cranial base. You guys who've managed to stay with me and have come, rain, snow, whatever, may have thought you weren't going to be adept in anatomy, but you've learnt more anatomy than I ever learnt on my cranial training. And they got it wrong anyway. I'm not out. But there you go. I think that's it for the talking. We'll have, I'm sorry, you know, people say you talk too much. It's part of it. It's just part of it. You know, you just learn all, and then you get the meditation, and it primes people. You need the anatomy. You need the anatomy to give you a good visualization of what we're doing in the meditation, and you need the physiology as a good thing, visualization for the dynamics we're using. Okay, see that's a styloid process coming down there, and this is where holographic breathing of the jaw is connecting to. You've got a muscle coming from the styloid process down to the hyoid here, and then to the front of the jaw here, and then this all connects to the hyoid, and then the trachea and the esophagus, and also the muscles from here to the top of the sternum, they pull down the hyoid on the in-breath, and that is pulling on this muscle from here that goes to the, like a V there, and as that pulls down, that is what's pulling the jaw and tongue down. And because it's central, it's not coming to the sides of the jaw, it's pulling the jaw down, but it's putting a pressure front to back, and it pulls the jaw down, but what it does is it expands the jaw out to the sides, because in a way it's pulling the jaw back a bit, and because it's connected here, it can't really go back, and it expands instead. So that is a styloid process, which is here, and then slightly back from the styloid process, you've got the top vertebrae here, then you've got the Fias phoenix is sitting on the condyles, which are here. This is a condyle. The cranium is sitting on the atlas vertebrae there. You've got the condyles there, which are they're not. It's the same bone. It's the balance bone, so it's not the same color. It's the same bone. I have it as one bone. The balance bone from here used to be called the occiput before I found out they'd named it wrongly, and it was actually called the balance bone. And then the front part, then you've got the condyle there, and the bone continues, and then I painted it red from here, and it rises up right to the back of the ethmoid, which is finishing about there. So the Fias phoenix is from about here to here, and then it spreads out sideways and becomes the temples to the side, spreads out sideways, becomes you get the wings of the sphenoid there. So the back of the balance bone here, then the front of the balance bone here, and the front part is the Fias phoenix, and I guess the back of the ethmoid is about there. Where is it in this? Yeah, so Fias phoenix is from here to about there.